Hello there and happy May to you. This is Molly McCord and we're going to take a look at the Scorpio Full Moon that is exact May 18th, 2019. This will happen at 5:11 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, so be sure and adjust for your time zone and your location on the globe. We're going to take a look at this full moon because it is, of course, 2 weeks after the Taurus new moon. So there is a building energy that happened from the May 4th new moon as the moon traveled onwards and reached 27 degrees of Scorpio, where it is exactly opposite of the sun at 27 degrees of Taurus. Every full moon is an opposition of energies. It's a shining a light, the sun's light being reflected on the moon, shining a light on what has been undercover, under surface, and what you're meant to see now. And that's very true for the Scorpio full moon, because it's a time of revelations, of secrets, of what's been going on underground, under the surface, being seen and being acknowledged. Now, this is a powerful moon. It is a private moon in Scorpio. It can be very intuitive and emotional. It feels deeply. It really feels so much. And if that energy is not moved, if it sits in the emotional body, it can stir. Scorpio is a fixed sign. I tend to think of it as a hot tub where the water circulates and circulates, and then it can just keep getting hotter. But it needs to be filtered out. And that's one of the healthy ways of dealing with the moon in Scorpio, is that you need a release. You need something that allows the detox or the energies to move out and away so that you're not holding on to something. So this full moon could show you what you've been holding on to, especially when you look at 27 degrees of Scorpio in your natal astrology chart. So it's a powerful new moon, full moon, and it's meant to show you more of yourself, more of your own consciousness that you weren't aware was operating in the background. Because this is the subconscious, the psyche, the parts of ourselves that we aren't always in deep awareness of. There's an opportunity here for enlightenment. And traditionally, the Scorpio full moon is known as the Buddha full moon, and it's associated with the Buddha's birth, enlightenment, and death, and that cycle of deep transformation of all the wisdom that has been gained and how to use it and transform it into something that is even more meaningful and deeper. So there's emotional intensity with the Scorpio full moon that ultimately leads you to deeper understandings of your inner self, your inner workings, and again, what has been operating within you that was not in your conscious awareness. Now, the full moon is grounded by the sun at 27 degrees of Taurus, conjunct Mercury at 24 degrees of Taurus. So this conjunction of Mercury and the sun makes us more communicative or even talkative. This is where there's things that you want to maybe do or take on. Mercury is related to not only our mind and communications and what we say, but also projects, ideas, details, and specifics. And as it travels through Taurus, there's an observer here that is taking in that information, assessing it, and determining what it's worth. What's valuable here? What can I really use? And what do I release? So Mercury is also opposing the moon, which sets up this opposition between what you feel and what you think. And this can be grounding because of how intense this moon can be. This Taurus energy brings you back to what you know is true for you. What is solid within you, and where you can go to maybe filter out something that's too deep and come back to the simplicity and the beauty of who you are. So this is a self-love, self-affirming energy where the words you say to yourself are very important. And to ensure that you don't get swept away by these forces, or that you don't get locked in to that swirling hot tub energy. And again, there's no filter. So you have this opportunity to balance what you're feeling with what is your sense of self, regardless of the weather, regardless of a storm or regardless of a beautiful sunny day. Taurus is where we stabilize and we have a sense of, this is what is true for me because I know I'm loved and I know that I am love. So this can, again, it feels oppositional, which it is, but I feel it as this grounds and supports this experience of the emotional internal world. Another way to look at this dynamic is that you talk to the moon in Scorpio. You hear what the feelings are or the fears. You hear what comes up. And then this Mercury looks for more specifics and says, well, how is that so? Can you provide an example, or is that all in your heart? Where are these truths coming from? Because I feel like this Mercury at its best engages in conversation to understand this part of your experience. So it's truly a conversation between the head and the heart, and allowing both parts of you to be heard. So let's take a look at what else we have going on here. I'm going to move the camera down because, as you can see, this energy is also very strong in connecting the dots of Pluto in Capricorn, retrograde at 23 degrees here. And of course, Pluto is conjunct Saturn at 20 degrees of Capricorn retrograde. The strongest energy is actually between the Pluto and Mercury because they're only 1 degree apart. Okay, so they have the strongest trine right now, which again adds to the perceptions you've created or how you're solving something. This Pluto investigator energy is going deeper into what needs to be seen, but it's also in an earth sign, and that's supporting this Mercury energy. 4 days before this full moon, the sun was at 23 degrees of Taurus and was also trining Pluto. So that would have been May 14th. The sun and Pluto were exactly trine, and that's a powerful energy because that trine is progress, ambition, power, a sense of purpose, doors open, things connect. That's a powerful dynamic there with that aspect of the sun and Pluto connecting in the earth signs of our physical reality, of making forward movement on something. And then Mercury comes through and provides the details, the conversations, the communications about what transpired when the sun was at 23 degrees. So there is this ongoing conversation that's still in play. And then this moon could bring up your fears and how you really feel about something that's been decided. And it can actually bring up your fears about if you feel worthy, and if you feel that you can handle it, and if it feels that it's something that you're ready for. And the energy feels like, because it's supported, because the moon is making a wide sextile to this Pluto, there's a part of you that's elevating your sense of power. And sometimes that leveling up can be scary at first, when you realize the responsibilities of power, which is what Pluto in Capricorn is teaching us. and showing us. So there's a call here to step into how you are honoring your own power when things are presented to you, opportunities and progress are made, and how you are able to also emotionally move into a new place within yourself that can handle any kind of temporary fears, but also a deeper understanding that you wouldn't have energetically connected with something if you didn't already have that energy within you. Meaning there's a part of you that's already in that place of power, that's moved away from the fears. And this is where it's showing up in the physical world. Finally, the earth signs is when things connect in the physical world. After work, after effort, after we've done what we've needed to do. And it feels like there's something that moves forward with this full moon. And it's dealing with that emotionally. That is our assignment at this time. Now, we also have Saturn still in this sextile to Neptune at 18 degrees of Pisces. With Saturn in retrograde, he's moving back and will be in an ongoing sextile to Neptune until September. And this is showing you how you can release and let go any burdens, roles, or responsibilities that you're complete with. And what you can't see on this chart is that the south node is right here at 20 degrees, 15 minutes. Saturn is sitting on the south node at this full moon. A huge release, huge karmic endings, a huge time of things being over and complete, and understanding that that's what's needed right now. And can you let it go and move on as a new dream takes shape and you trust this new dream even more. Now, this Neptune at 18 degrees is trining the north node up there at 20 degrees of Cancer, 15 minutes. So there is the new dream forming as these karmic energies are completed and ending. Keep in mind that the Cancer and Capricorn axis is also related to familial issues, family patterns, family systems, the mother, the matriarch, the father, and the patriarchy. So this is a reworking of these energies as well in the collective, as well as for us individually, in how we honor our feminine feelings, trusting ourselves, understanding how we are responsible for our emotional world, that we are always responsible for our feelings, and to claim ownership over that. And then this releasing of Saturn conjunct the South Node is where we're seeing a lot change in the world around us that represents cycles completing, cycles ending. And I feel like this is strong because Saturn is going to continue to travel with the South Node into September. So Saturn and the South Node have work to do over the next number of months, and it's going to be ongoing. And I feel like it's important to go to the water energies here of this Neptune and that North Node, and to see where we have supreme trust in ourselves during an unknown future. And of course, you could argue that the future is always unknown, but this is a deeper spiritual trust. And it's a trust in what you have faith in and what you believe in. And knowing that that is part of our human experience, that we can't only be caught up in the physical reality. We are, multi-sensory, multi-dimensional beings. And we have energies in many different places. And the other thing I want to mention about this full moon, for those who know, is that this is also activating Pleiadian degree, Pleiadian star codes, Pleiadian points in the galaxy, which is what the 27 of the fixed signs is. So there's cosmic downloads happening here as we move through the May 18th full moon gateway. This is a portal that opens you up to deeper cosmic knowledge. And there's something here that we need to open up to, because I'm feeling like the earth is on a certain trajectory that we want to shift, and that we have shifted before in other powerful periods of energies. This is something around the awareness of the globe, the earth, and where the cosmic knowledge is becoming more interesting and curious to more people. This is the fact that, of course, we're not alone in this galaxy, and there have been beings on this planet and aliens for a very long time. And they're here now, and there's people masquerading as humans. And I know this is all kind of out there for some of you, but it's what's been unfolding for years. And there are many who know about this. And of course, it's been hidden. And people talk about disclosure and cosmic disclosure. Well, that's all very tightly controlled. It's tightly controlled by the Saturn and Pluto in Capricorn energies. But those are going over the south node of release, which is where our greatest powers is in trusting ourselves and in continuing to develop our intuitive abilities and to know that we have these abilities. And I feel like that's part of this opening here, because Scorpio energy can be incredibly psychic and magical and mystical. And there is something forming here. And I'm just seeing how about 12 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours before this full moon, this moon in Scorpio was at 18 or 20 degrees, which created a grand trine with Neptune and the North Node in Cancer, a water grand trine. So right before this full moon, I feel it during, like, when you're sleeping, when you're not awake, there's messages that have the potential to come through and come in and open you up to more of your own energies that you're invited to work with. Because as the moon moves between 20 and 23 degrees of Scorpio, it creates a kite with these planets in Capricorn. And that kite configuration says to look at the permanent structures and changes that need to be happening for the good of humanity, for things that are needing to just not be carried forward anymore. And that can be scary at first when there have been a lot of elements that have gone into creating governments and institutions and businesses and corporations and all these Capricorn ruled entities. There's something here that's returning us to the wisdom of ourselves, the wisdom of our spiritual gifts. That is how we stay in our power as we move through these big cosmic changes that are happening in ways that are not public yet and are not clear, but you can feel it. You can feel it, and it even shows up in the Schumann resonance of the planet, and how there's spikes in the frequency, and how there's more people who are understanding the bigger picture. So this is a really fascinating Scorpio full moon because it's working with cosmic energies. It's asking us to raise our awareness, to trust ourselves even more, to understand that personal power is something that we continually develop and nurture and grow, and that it's necessary right now to continually enlighten yourself with new information, and to consider it, think about it, stay smart. The earth signs are also about what's happening on the surface, And the water signs are what's happening underneath the surface. So there is an understanding that, okay, these are the changes happening in our world, but this is what I trust and what I feel and what I sense is happening that maybe is not quite visible yet. Jupiter is at 22 of Sag here, retrograde, and Jupiter moving in retrograde will meet up again in another square here with Neptune. So that's growing as we move into June and July. And this is a square that is quite interesting because Neptune is the more powerful energy because it's the further planet out. The slowest moving planet is more powerful. And Jupiter actually is beautifully linked with Pisces. So this is it's a square, but there's something about it that's softer because of how these energies work together, of how we're looking at what we believe in. We're learning, always learning with Jupiter and Sagittarius, learning more, going further in our knowledge and understanding. And then this Neptune is reminding us that nothing is forever. Everything is temporary. Everything is an illusion. That's also a message of this Neptune and Pisces. Everything is an illusion. And with Jupiter being in a fire sign, that can be the ego. So there could be a surrender of what you think you know to stay in this place of openness and to stay in this place of wonder and to keep exploring and learning, but to not get too attached because of how that can serve us at a human level. But at a spiritual level, we're meant to stay in the flows of energies and in the flows of life. And one more thing I'd like to mention about this full moon is that Mars is now in Cancer, almost 2 degrees of Cancer here. And anytime a planet is in a cardinal sign, the cardinal signs are Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn, it sets off some powerful energies because now this Mars, which is a trigger planet, which is an activator and gets things moving, it's actually slowed down being in Cancer. It's like running in the water, running in the ocean, and the Cancer energy, which is associated with a crab, does better moving sideways. And if you swim too far out into the ocean, your best bet for safety is to go sideways with the riptides. So this Mars is diluted, and he's not very strong in Cancer. He can be reactionary and defensive. He can be very emotional. But when he trusts himself and he gives himself time to process, he can take the right action and he can move forward. Now, this Mars is going to eventually, later on in June, link up with the North Node. And it's also going to oppose Saturn and Pluto in Capricorn. So this is something to be aware of because this is the energy of two sides, of disagreements, of tension, of war, of things not lining up. So Mars in Cancer is definitely something to be aware of. And then the other thing is how this Mars is also approaching an exact square to Chiron at 4 degrees of Aries, almost 5 degrees. And this again, Mars triggers, and this Chiron in Aries is ruled by Mars. This can trigger something from childhood, a long buried wound, something that was unconscious, because both Aries and Cancer are associated with childhood. And it can be something that triggers you. So stay conscious of that as we move through this last, especially the last week in May. Let's just call it the last 2 weeks in May, and be aware that the best use of this energy is that what you trigger, you understand, you now have the power and choice to heal it, and you can let it go, and you can say, that's not who I am anymore. That's not what I want to be. This Chiron in Aries is asking us to be very clear in our self-identity and who we are now, and that you're building up a new confidence in yourself. This Mars could trigger that. It can trigger the soft spots, the vulnerabilities, the doubts, and stay conscious of it. Stay aware of it. And stay in your power with it, because this is very immediate action. I mean, this is where something happens and you're quick to react, and maybe the anger comes up before you know what to do with it, or there's an emotional swell that overtakes you. So just be very aware of this trigger of Mars triggering Chiron here, that will last for a few days. And if you're aware of it, you can stay mindful of it and say, oh, that's what it was. Oh, there it is. That's what got me, or that's what feels crappy. But then you understand how this Mars is helping to clear out the wound, and how that sometimes hurts. If you've ever fallen down and you got a bad scrape and there was dirt in the scrape, it hurts right away. And then you use something like an antiseptic or hydrogen peroxide to clean out that wound, and it bubbles out. And the purpose of that is to clean out the wound, right? To clear out the dirt and the debris. And then once it's cleared out, it's better and it's going to be healthier. That's the image I get with this Mars squaring Chiron, is that if there's something that hurts, you clean it out right away, and then it will be healthier faster. And that could be a good way to work with this energy if it shows up for you just after this full moon. So powerful full moon, and it's often one of transformation, as all Scorpio energies are. Something energetically is complete for you. And again, that could be something in your own emotional process or your self-awareness around your feelings. But there's something that's meant to change here. And then as the moon moves into Sagittarius, the energy shifts. We get happier, we get more wisdom and positivity about what we've learned. And then the moon will make a conjunction to Jupiter, and that's very uplifting too. So I feel like right after this full moon, there's going to be some relief and some understanding of what it's been about. And then, of course, the energies continue onward. So thank you for joining me, and I'll be back here soon in June to talk about a new moon. And I wish you a beautiful and loving Scorpio full moon as we move through a very powerful year. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for your likes and comments. And please check out more of my offerings below this video, and I'll see you back here soon.